had many years ago, and I never actually thought I'd ever be living out here. And this is long before I ever even came out to Colorado. I had a book called Mysteries of the Unexplained, and it had all of these UFO stories. And sure enough, I think for me, I thought it was a big joke when I was in New Mexico. Right on the New Mexico-Colorado border at that time, and there were little stickers above all of the cattle warning signs with little UFOs flying over them. And one night, just as the sun was going down, it hadn't yet got completely dark, I looked up and I saw something that looked like a comet. I asked Daniela, I said, is there a comet that's supposed to be coming out? And then this thing got closer and closer. And then it started changing shape. So I did grab my camera and took some pictures of it, some really good pictures. This thing was seen all over Colorado Springs. 9 News even used a couple of my pictures on there because most people had cell phones. Cell phones, you can't really get a good picture. You can get like a little dot up in the sky, but with my camera, I brought it right on top of this thing. It changed shapes, it changed colors, went up into a little tiny cloud, and then just flat out disappeared. No weather balloon that I know of could move the way this thing did and change shapes.
Well, I think that this is kind of a vortex, not just this area, but other areas in New Mexico, and that's why perhaps the government's been here for some time, involved in some of their underground bases and tunnels, and they call it the Taos hum, which is an oscillating sound that people occasionally report. It comes and goes, but there's what we know about Denver, but there's very little credible information on the internet about what could be going on here. It's hearsay, but there's been rumors of things going on underground in Blanca, if anything that Chris O'Brien has written about is correct. And other things, including, of course, lots of reports of orbs, red colors, orange, and they come in waves and cycles when there's a lot of sightings going in and out of certain mountains in particular, like San Gredo Cristo Mountains or Blanca.
Well,
or
here's
some people have also seen you.
Here's some other things that I thought was very funny about this whole UFO thing. Is the fact that there were at least 3 government Humvees that showed up right just before the thing disappeared. One showed up and it was across the Rio Grande River. Now this is where you've got that little mountain and it looks like half of the mountain's eroded away. It's kind of a historical landmark out there in that area. And
we're talking about by Lobato Bridge. Okay.
Then another one stopped at the Lobato Bridge, and then another Humvee stopped just down the road about a mile from it. And I sat there watching from a high point of ground out there. Believe me, there's not much in the way of high ground out there, but I did find a spot where I could sit there and watch. They were out there till 3 o'clock in the morning. I took my camera chip out of the camera and actually hid it in some sagebrush because I was afraid they were going to come onto the property and confiscate my camera. And that's why I posted those UFO pictures as quick as possible. About 3 days later, around the exact same time, the same object appeared in the sky again, but this time it was a little more to the left of the mountain than where we saw it before. It moved in kind of a funny straight down, over, straight up, and then right in front of my eyes disappeared. I again got my camera out and got a few pictures, but this time it was gone within a minute. The last time I'd say it was out there for about 10 minutes, and this time it was gone within a minute. I didn't see any government Humvee show up out there at that time, but there's a couple of speculations I have. Either it is from outer space or our own government is out there playing around with government toys. I've talked to other people in the San Luis Valley out there. They also saw. I was kind of glad that our neighbors saw it. I asked them if they'd seen this thing, and they said they saw it. And people about a mile or so away, David Randall and Chrissy Tron had also seen it. So I was kind of glad that we weren't the only ones that saw it. I had talked to our neighbor, our closest neighbor, which is probably about quarter of a mile away. They said that they saw it the first night. The second night, no one had seen it, but the first time it showed up out there. One of the neighbors even said that he even seen that the government Humvees were out there. The thing that gets me is, how did they know it was going to be out there? I mean, where exactly did these government Humvees come from? I have seen those Humvees in Alamosa at the National Guard building. But the soldiers that I saw getting out of this Humvee across the river there didn't look like National Guard.
Just to reiterate, what was the time period for this again?
That would have been late September of last year.
Okay, over by Lobato Bridge.
Over by Lobato Bridge, yes.
Military Humvees.
Military
How many?
Humvees. There were 3 of them.
3 of them.
One came across the river onto Kohino's side.
They're on the BLM side.
And went up towards that mountain. And then 3 of the guys got out of the vehicle.
They drove up in their Humvees up the mountain.
Now the thing that the
I've been up that path once.
flying disc thing disappeared, but
It's
they
like
still
a
got
lookout
out.
spot where you
Yeah.
can really see. And you have to have a certain vehicle to get up there. You have to have a 4-wheeler.
Oh, it's a
Something.
really rough road. I mean,
Yeah.
Danielle and I drove up there when we climbed that mountain.
I've been
one
taken
time.
up there once with a Jeep that can do it. It was terrifying.
But then the other Humvee, because I went in the house and I got the binoculars. Obviously, I wanted to see, and that's why.
Now, where were you again exactly?
We were in Daniela had a piece of property there. And
You were able to see them from the property line.
well, what I did is when the Humvees showed up, I killed all the lights. I made the place completely dark. I even went and took
In the time period
the solar
response,
lights.
they were there right afterwards. Is that what you're...
The first Humvee showed up just as the thing went up and disappeared into the cloud, and they got out, and by then it was starting to get really, really dark, but I could still see them. And then that Humvee stayed for a little while. Then it went down to the bridge, and it looked like they'd set up a bit of a roadblock at that bridge. And around 2:30, one of the Humvees drove up onto Daniela's land, right there where the road and the driveway, turned his vehicle and started shining its lights onto our property.
Again, and that's in the general area of
the Lobato Bridge.
Okay.
Let me see. There
Was it seen in several counties? Was it something that was seen streaking, like, going across the state or something like that? Like sometimes we hear about these fireballs or other things that are seen in multiple locations.
What I could see on 9 News, they had a story on it, and this thing just stayed up there like it was a star. And of course, a lot of people took pictures of it with their cell phone camera and pictures, so they didn't really turn out all that well. Even the 9 News, when they got out there, it was still there, and they were filming it. Nobody knew what it was, but whatever it wasn't even like it was even trying to hide. I think the only difference is in the sightings in El Paso County, Grand Junction, 1 or 2 places up around Moab. I think the difference was that this was way up in the sky, whereas what me and Daniela and a few residents in our area saw was something that started out way up in the sky. Like, to me, it looked like a comet. It actually had a comet tail. And the way it was moving, just very slowly across the sky, and then all of a sudden it stopped, got closer. It was flying, I'd say, little ways up above that old mountain, the mountain I was telling you about, the flat top, and the one that's kind of carved away. It was flying to the, well, if you were facing the way we were facing, it would have been to the left of it, more on the New Mexico side. I thought for sure whatever it was might actually land out there, and I was a little upset that the government Humvee showed up, because it seemed like when the government Humvee showed up, this thing disappeared.
This is why I find this subject very significant, and I think everybody should. There's a couple different possibilities what it could be. You have the alien idea that it's extraterrestrial or something else or spiritual. the idea of the government or our government testing our spacecrafts, but there could be other options, a foreign government using stealth technology testing national defenses and knowing that this stuff is out there and these new jets and all these articles about like Russia and China having these technologies that the U.S. has, flying saucer technologies and invisibility cloaks and things of that nature. So there's a number of different possibilities, but it shows that there's something significant about this area some way, somehow, because of the, in my opinion, the historical evidence of something going on here.
The very first, now I could be wrong, but I think the very first South Park episode had to do with aliens. I think it was Cartman got an alien probe, and I don't know if you've ever seen that or not. So obviously this area is very well known. The whole 285 corridor, people have disappeared. Robert Stack even did an episode in his show, Unsolved Mysteries, and even the book Mysteries in the Unexplained, if you can find a copy of it. It had stories about this, so it's been going on a long time. I don't know how far back in history that they have had these things happen. I'd like to talk to more people about this, more local people. Because I never took any of this serious. I took it all as a big joke. I think it was February of last year, we actually saw one of those cattle that had been mutilated. It was a calf. And it was mutilated in such a horrible way, I didn't even take any pictures of it. But it was just the way that it was done, and yet there was fresh snow, and there wasn't a single animal or human track around this animal. Yet the skin was peeled back, and certain body organs were removed off this cow. And I'm not sure if it's the same kind of thing that happened, but Daniela discovered four coyotes had been killed in this various way as well. That could have been somebody with a very sick mind out there doing that to the coyotes. I don't know. You'd have to talk to her about that. I'm going to try to blow this thing up a little bit. But yeah, our first thought was that it was a weather balloon. But then it began to change shapes. There it's changing a shape. And even changing color. Now it's going to more of an orange color. And the whole time it's doing this pattern the way this thing was moving. Now this is very nice because here you've got, you can even see a little bit of a center right there. I'll blow that up best I can here for you.
Yeah, I actually got it. I got the detail.
And then here it is going to a complete orange. And that was the phase that it went through. And then suddenly it just went straight up into a cloud. There was only one little tiny cloud up there. And that was the last picture I took of it. And then it just flat out disappeared. I actually grabbed my camera and ran as close as I could down there to it. I was still a little bit up above on the bluff there, and that's when I saw the Humvee come in there. And there it kind of has that weather balloon look to it. I got 8 of this one, and then a couple of nights later, the thing came back. That's when I grabbed a video camera and captured it moving along the road, and then it went up and disappeared. At that time, though, I will say I didn't see any Humvees or anything come out there.
But these are from September 2014.
Yes.
When you saw the military Humvees come out to Lobato Bridge.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can go to Bing Images and find the newscast for you.
Okay.
Three very mysterious shiny lights over Breckenridge have police and residents puzzled. Just before noon today, law enforcement agencies started getting reports of UFOs. 9 News Mountain Newsroom reporter Matt Renew is joining us from Breckenridge. And Matt, many people saw these objects today, including yourself.
You bet, Mark. It has been the talk of the town around Breckenridge all day. Even if now here at 5 o'clock, I'm about the only person willing to get in front of a camera and talk about the UFOs that were flying overhead. There was 3 white dots, I'll show you, that were flying over a Breckenridge behind me late this morning. Looked as if they were hovering right over Baldy Mountain behind me. And while no one from the Breckenridge Police Department or Sheriff's Departments wanted to talk about the objects on camera, several people at those organizations saw them, and others around town reported the strange things flying over the skies of Breckenridge, sending police out to investigate these shiny, white, tiny dots in the sky. Some people off camera said they saw them form triangles and a line. On our camera, it seemed as if they didn't move at all. In fact, it took some help for most people to even see them.
Very top of the trees, and then just go to the left in the blue sky. There's all those kind of wispy clouds. Yeah. There's a white dot right in near the edge of those wispy clouds.
Just to the left of the second pine tree, there's a white dot. The FAA didn't have a comment on what these dots could be, nor had said they're not tracking any abnormalities at this time. But yesterday, a TV station in Utah reported very similar white dots appearing in the sky over Utah. The objects were visible for about 3 hours. They showed up best when the sun was reflecting off of them. Mark, we also called the Strategic Command as well, U.S. Strategic Command. They said they aren't tracking anything, but they typically track those objects that come in from outer space and then enter orbit. They believe whatever these were probably below their range of tracking.
And not drones, you don't think, Matt?
I don't think they were drones, and the folks that I talked to said they didn't look like weather balloons because at times they would just sit there for 5 or 6 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes without moving an inch on our view screen in the camera, and then you would see a flash of light and they would take off across the edge of the mountain ridge behind me. So it didn't appear to be drones, it didn't appear to be weather balloons, truly unidentified flying objects in the skies over Breckenridge today.
All right, Matt Renew, if you should suddenly disappear, we have a clue. Matt Renew reporting live from Summit County.
Very relieved when they showed the story on the news of people in El Paso County seeing it all over Colorado Springs, because then nobody can sit there and say, well, this was you doing some sort of joke or something like that.